Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Anna Thompson, and I'll be moderating the session along with my fellow NW Learn board member, Amy, filmmaker. Thank you for being here. In this session, I ace this alternative assessment ideas with Jessica McKee. That's where we are right now, and they're going to tell you more about themselves when we get started. And I'm just going to share with you a few housekeeping items before we do that. If you have any questions, you can post them in the Zoom chat. Also, this session is being recorded and will be made available on our conference website once it is done being captioned. We do have the automatic transcription on, so you're welcome to turn on the subtitles or the full transcript if you like. The speaker slides will be also made available on our conference website, and our speaker is going to post them and share them out right after this presentation. Finally, we would like to say thank you to our sponsor, HonorLog, for helping us make this conference possible. HonorLog is all about humanizing online proctoring. If you want to chat with them, head over to the channel in our conference Slack, and we'll put the link in the chat for you. So now I'll hand it over to our speaker.
All right, thank you, Anna. Thank you, Amy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica McKee, and I am from WSU Vancouver. And as you can see, the title of my presentation is I Aced This, Alternative Assessment Ideas. And bonus points if you can figure out what film that my graphic on my title slide is from. It's from one of my favorite films. So anyway, if you know what the answer is, go ahead and put it in the chat. Anyway, so moving right along here. Let's see. Come on. There we go. So a little bit about me. I'm a first-generation college student and graduate. Before I began my career in IT, I was an adjunct instructor. I taught Spanish for 11 years, mostly here at WSU Vancouver, but I also taught at Clark College, Portland State University, and Portland Community College. I currently teach professional development, teaching and learning workshops for postdocs and graduate students. And that was a series of workshops that I designed myself. I came up with the idea, when was it? This past May or June, and thinking there's no way the administration is going to let this happen. Well, I was wrong. They gave me their blessing. Hey, go for it. This is great. Design the course. I'm like, okay. So I feverishly designed a series of workshops, and I actually teach a workshop tomorrow. So I need to work on my lesson plan after I get done with this presentation. And so, in that workshop, we do talk a little bit about alternative assessment ideas. So when I'm not teaching, I work as a level 2 IT support technician and course designer here at WSU Vancouver. So I do a little bit of everything. So Zoom support. I'm a Canvas certified educator for higher ed. I'm one of 2 in the WSU system. And I think I'm one of 2 in the state of Washington, as far as I know. I also do AV support, and on occasion, I do some low grade electrical work too. So I'm sort of like a Jill of all trades, if you will. So that's enough about me. So getting into assessment types, when I was teaching, depending on where I was, since I was an adjunct for the most part, I didn't have a lot of control as to what assessment types or assessments that I could use. It was mostly, maybe chapter exams or quizzes for my students that, again, I didn't have any real control over. They were either they were most part created for me, and then just had to grade them and, administer them and grade them. For some of my courses, I actually taught, they were non-credit. And so the assessments were less formal. I didn't give chapter quizzes. I gave, homework and low stakes assessments, but, rather than really scare my students and, assessments, I just kept it really low key. But, nevertheless, making sure the students, understood the material and taught the material in different ways for different learners and things like that. So, so about the assessment types, just, basic review, your formative assessments and summative assessments. So you have assessment for learning, you have collaborative, which is collaborative between the instructor and the students. And then you have summative assessments, that's assessment of learning, which is more teacher directed. So that's where I'm coming from as far as these assessment ideas, these two right here. So just like a sort of a breakdown of what I do, or examples of formative assessments, what's listed. I mean, I could go on and on for formative assessments. There's all kinds. I just, picked this list here. You got your low stakes group work, which is a good way to get started. The first few weeks of a semester or quarter, just to kind of see where students are, pre-midterm, if you will, and getting classroom norms established. Where do you need to take your learning outcomes? Do you need to make some changes to your lesson plans? You need to pare down your course schedule, things like that. There's think, pair, share, which I like. Discussion posts, 1-minute reflections, that could be even includes, sometimes they're called like muddiest point, clearest point. Eye clickers, I hear at WSU Vancouver, eye clickers are used pretty heavily with the science courses, and some other non-science courses too, but none that are off the top. I can't think of off the top of my head, but definitely the sciences. Peer reviews and exit and entrance slips. So with a lot of these assessments here, I actually have a story about some of them, either when I was a student and the instructor used this assessment with the courses I was taking, or these are assessments that my colleagues have used. And so I have a story about those, things like that. So this is kind of going to be a story-based presentation. So then your summative assessments, exams, and just, standardized tests, just a couple of basic examples right there. So, with assessments, I'm just going to move my chat window here a little bit. If you're designing a course, you're assisting with a course design, or if you are an instructor, here's some things to keep in mind. Do the assessments align with the learning goals and outcomes of the course? If you're designing your assessments or you're writing your assessments, and if they're not aligning with the goals and the outcomes of the course, then why are you making the exam or the assessment in the first place? What kind of assessments could be added to your course that would accomplish, the alignment of goals and outcomes for the course, or even your students' needs. And, you definitely want to offer the students multiple ways to demonstrate their knowledge. I mean, that's tough to do if it's just a paper and pencil exam, because, there are some students who just aren't good at taking exams, but they're good at other things, and vice versa. So some more things to keep in mind, it's, good, sort of universal design for learning policy and, student engagement, allow the students to play a role in the assessment process. Students have more incentive and buy-in and engagement, develop lifelong skills, and feedback is more practical and it's immediate, and it saves you time. Well, it saves the instructor time, and then if you're a course designer, you're helping the instructor save time. So it's a win-win for everybody. So. Is there any questions so far, Anna, Amy, from the chat?
We have some guesses for the video.
Oh, we'll get to that in later. I'll see that at the end. Okay, so here's I'm gonna give some examples of some of the assessments that I mentioned a couple of slides back. So this entrance exit slip. So a story for that one was when I was in graduate school the first time. Actually, I have 2 master's degrees, so this is gonna be my first master's degree. I was taking an educational psychology course, and this is where I was sort of introduced to active learning techniques. Actually, it was the learning techniques. Of course, I've had active learning participation before as a student, but I didn't know that it was active learning. And so when I took this educational psychology course, at the end of, usually at the end of each class meeting, the instructor would hand us, maybe we have to do a 1-minute reflection on, what we learned in that course meeting, or over the course of a couple of course meetings or whatever. But this one right here, the instructor handed us a blank comic strip, just like kind of what you see here. And what we had to do is we had to create a conversation between the two characters talking about the course concepts that we either learned during that course meeting or over the course of maybe 6 weeks. And so we didn't have very much time to, to get really creative. We just had to like use this template and just, fill in the bubbles. Then we had to turn it in because that was our exit slip to leave. And then what the instructor would do she would look at them, and then give some written feedback and hand it back to us at the next course, course meeting. And so I just thought that was a really cool and creative idea to use a comic strip for us as an entrance or an exit slip. So if it was an entrance slip, then it might have been, we had to fill in the bubbles based on maybe an article that we read, or something from the textbook, or an online posting or discussion board, whatever the case may be. So in order to get into class, you had to turn in your slip, and then she would maybe review them as we were working on group work, and then we'd come back as a whole class, and then kind of she'd pick out some of the slips and maybe answer questions or provide clarification, that kind of thing, is sort of a jumping off point to the course meeting for that evening. So kind of moving on to portfolios. So for the professional development workshops that I'm teaching right now, the students are going to start putting together their teaching portfolios so that they'd have these ready for, job applications, that kind of thing. So we're kind of going to get started with that process, actually, I think tomorrow. And so with portfolios, they are what they are. It's a collection of student work selected by the student that shows learning growth over time. And, with portfolios, the instructor could require, okay, you have to include this piece by default, but as a student, you have the choice of choosing, 2 more pieces of work that you think best demonstrates your learning growth over the course of the quarter or the semester, whatever the case may be. And it's student-centered. And so with the portfolios, you can have the students present them to the class or one-on-one with the instructor. I've seen both approaches. And then sometimes the instructor will ask the students to include a reflection piece about the work they chose and why those artifacts were chosen. I remember as a student, we didn't get I never got a chance to use or do a learning portfolio. I think the only one time that comes to mind is it was for it was ordered to pass like a junior year writing requirement or something. I had to submit like 3 essays to a committee that I didn't know who they were. They'd read my work and be like, okay, yeah, you pass with distinction. Okay, you can move on. You can enroll in like 400 level English course or something like that. So I guess my experience with portfolios was something kind of not really memorable. It was more stressful than anything. But for something that's like really, I guess, lesser stakes than just being able to enroll in a 400 level English course, this can actually be really fun, I think. Let's see. So performance tasks, and here's where some of the stories come in. So with the courses that I've taken, they're usually history courses, English courses, Spanish courses, whatever. I've seen instructors include, if the students wanted to cook something, based on maybe a novel that they read, and there was food that was talked about in the book, or maybe in a film or a poem or whatever, and bring that in at the last course session as sort of like a review or a presentation of some kind. Of course, you share it with the class. The sewing, actually, when I was an undergrad at Clark College, I took a history course. I think it was a world history course. And one of the projects that we could choose, we didn't take an exam. We could sew an article of clothing from an era of history that we studied. And so I ended up sewing, I think it was a hat, and it was from like a 1500s era. I don't remember the exact era. I think it was Middle Ages or whatever. And so I went to, I think it was like Michael's or Joanne Fabric, and found the pattern. And I had very little sewing experience. So, I used a sewing machine, a 1959 Singer sewing machine, and I followed the pattern. I did my best with the sewing. I needed a little help from my mom, but nevertheless, I got the hat done. I think it was like we had to write 1,000-word reflection on why we chose this project and why it was significant, that kind of thing. And then we had to present it to the instructor in front of the class. And if she liked your work, she kept the hat. You got like 5 points extra credit or something like that. And so she kept my hat. So I got 5 points extra credit. I think I got an A for the project, and I think I got an A for the course or something, but I remember it. And that's sort of like kind of the bring home statement is like, with these alternative assessments, I remember these types of assessments better than I do a paper and pencil Scantron, or, maybe like an essay type final where you have like a blue book, or in my case, when I was at Portland State, it was a green book, and you're just feverishly writing, trying to beat the clock. With art projects, I have a colleague who's teaching at, what is she? Oh, British, I think it's British literature at Florida International University. And she has her students do, offers an art project choice for maybe a book they're reading or a poem or whatever. And I remember one of the assessments was she had them create memes, a series of memes based on a book or a poem or whatever. And her student just hit it out of the park. She even shared some of them on Facebook, and they were really, really super cool, and the students loved it. But of course, she got student permission to post it on Facebook. But I was very impressed with the quality of work, and she had them do a reflection and that kind of thing. So, music. When I was at Portland State, my students had to do an oral presentation, very basic on the grammar points covered during that quarter. And I had the student come in and bring a guitar as part of their little skit that they did with their partner. And I still remember it, and that was over 10 years ago. Dance, well, so when I was at Clark College, I actually learned to salsa dance before a Spanish class. And so it wasn't a required assessment, but the instructor was like, hey, if you want to learn salsa, show up to class, a half hour before, I'll teach you to salsa dance. But then the requirement or the test is that you salsa dance, you do your performance in front of the class towards the end of the quarter. Okay. So I learned to salsa dance before Spanish class. It took 6 months of lessons and did the performance, and it was fun. I didn't do, it wasn't for a grade or anything. She was just an assessment in air quotes. So anyway, I still remember it. Podcast, I really don't have a story for that one, unfortunately, but I was having a conversation with an instructor last week who was offering a podcast as an assessment choice for her students for a history course. And I said, oh, that's really cool. Good. I'm glad you're offering that, because, it's pretty easy to do a podcast nowadays. But before, maybe a couple years ago, you would need a big setup, that kind of thing. But really, she wasn't looking for anything fancy. Just, if you've got a couple of cell phones in room that, record it, there's your podcast, that's really all you need to do. But what was also interesting was that one of the ideas that she was offering for this assessment, I don't know if it was for a midterm assessment or exactly what, but she said it was interesting because her students said that they didn't know how to use PowerPoint. And for some assessments, the instructor will ask students, "Hey, you do a PowerPoint presentation on this." Her students came up to her and said, "We don't know how to use PowerPoint." And so she came to our IT IT department asked if there were any like tutorials that we would offer to students on how to use PowerPoint. And I'm like, no, we don't. And then I even asked our technical support team, do you guys offer tutorials on for students on how to use PowerPoint? They're like, no. And so we really didn't have any answers for this instructor other than, try the library. Or, for a lot of students, if they're coming out of the pandemic, they may not have done really any projects, that would involve PowerPoint. Or in the case in Clark County, all of the school districts all use Google. So students may know how to use Google Slides, but maybe not necessarily PowerPoint. So I was very, I guess, surprised by that because, as a college student, I use PowerPoint, but then we have maybe a generation of students who have never used it before in their lives. So there's that piece too. Before I get into the zombie hunt, are there any questions in the chat?
There's somebody wondering about the zombie hunt.
Okay, the pièce de résistance. This happened last week. So I was approached by a biology instructor who I provided some Canvas and Zoom help before in the past. And she's a postdoc. And so she comes in my office, she comes right up to my cubicle and says, can you do me a favor? And I'm like, okay, like, what do you need? I just like, yeah, sure. She's like, you want to be a zombie? I thought about it for a second. I'm like, yes, sure. What do you need me to be a zombie for? Like how, what, why, when, all that kind of stuff. And so it turned out that, she teaches a human anatomy course and their students were learning the cranial nerves and what each cranial nerve does and what happens if a certain cranial nerve is damaged, that kind of thing. And so she needed 12 zombies because there's that many cranial nerves. And so she explained, okay, so you're gonna be assigned a cranial nerve. This cranial nerve is going to be damaged, and you need to demonstrate to the students, or have the students guess which cranial nerve of yours is damaged. Like, okay. So she was able to find 12 zombies, and it turned out that I was assigned cranial nerve 1, which is the olfactory nerve, and so I had lost my sense of smell. So I didn't dress up in a zombie costume or anything like that because later that day I was meeting with the administration. So I couldn't get in a zombie costume. I'm going to remember that for next time because I told the instructor that I'd be a zombie next year too. So I'm going to keep that in my back pocket. So anyway, she had students in groups. Oh, I don't remember how many. I would say there were 7 groups, but there was a forager for each group. So that forager would go around to these offices in the building where I'm at and visit each of the zombies and try to figure out, what cranial nerve was damaged, write it down, and then go on to the next person. So I laid it on really thick. And so what I did was I brought in some essential oils and I pretended like I would smell them, like, can you help me? What is this? I mean, it says, lavender, but, I don't know. So I made a student smell like a lavender oil. I had a bottle of sage oil, and then I had a pack of cinnamon gum. So I made them smell it. Like, what is this? And a lot of them, by me just going like this, meaning like, they knew, oh, that's olfactory, that's cranial nerve 1. So, but even though they guess it right away, I still made them smell everything. And I sort of played it off where like, are you sure this is what it is? You sure it's not this and not that? And I tell them, okay, yeah, you're right. And so I had them go on to the next one. But it was fun because I never would have guessed the zombie hunt for an assessment idea, but I love it. And number 2, I got to be a zombie, and I've never been a zombie before for a science course. And 3, I just laid on my acting skills so thick that I was having a good time. And then I was told by the instructor that they really liked me because I was fun. So, and I haven't heard back from the other zombies, if they laid it on thick, or if anybody dressed up or anything. But again, I remember it. The students are going to remember it, and I'm pretty sure they all know their cranial nerves really well now. So that's the zombie hunt story. All right. Let's see, where am I at now? Oh yeah, so that's really, I mean, that's kind of the end. There's my bibliography there. So questions? Oh, we'll get the questions first, then I'll do the reveal of the movie.
No questions right now.
Okay.
Greta said that it was so fun to hear about these examples.
Good, thank you. So the film, let me check the chat. I'm gonna see if anybody knows.
Mhm.
Yeah, you guys got it. It's from Real Genius. Yeah. I mean, I would have included the, with Val Kilmer handing the apple to Professor Hathaway, and Hathaway thrown in the garbage and it exploding, but time constraints. But yeah, it's from Real Genius. Yep. And I aced this, so quiet confidence from Chris Knight. So yep, there you go.
So AJ posted, since we're talking about assessments, you could get extra credit for posting a link to the YouTube of that scene in the movie.
I'll think about that for next time. It's on quite a bit on like Stars and Showtime and Cinemax. It's been like usually on a Saturday or something, on Saturday morning, like, oh, Real Genius is on. I've seen it a million times, but it's a classic, the one that
Yes.
I'm not going to spoil anymore. Y'all got to see it if you haven't seen it yet. So
Yeah, it's funny. So we do have a question here. Charmaine says, how could we adapt the performance assessments for online learning, like Zombie Hunt? How could we do that for online?
I mean, for online, some of these assessments it will require a lot of legwork, and you just may not be able to do for online. I haven't thought about how you could do that for online, a Zombie Hunt. You may be able, I'm thinking, if you use like VoiceThread or Flipgrid, maybe, with either, maybe not so much Flipgrid, but like with VoiceThread, if you have it as a third-party integration for your LMS, I think you could probably have a series of videos or whatever, and you could have the person on the other, providing the clues, and then in like maybe in the chat you could put down your answer, but then you'd have to, I don't know if you could find a way to make that where the students can't see the guesses, and then at the end you'd have to reveal it. Yeah, that's a really great question. I haven't thought about. Trying to think what else you could do. Flipgrid might work. Yeah, I mean, right now they'll do. Oh, well, actually, you may be able to make it work with Google Docs, where I was going to say you could have the students. Maybe not Google Docs. Maybe that's not a correct. Yeah, I'd have to think about it, but I think you could probably make it work with VoiceThread or Flipgrid or something along those lines. Yeah. I
have seen an example where an instructor has used embedding a YouTube video in a Google form, and then those answers are submitted, and then they're shared later.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. So that what you could do, you could even at WSU we have Panopto, and so what the instructor could do is you could create a Panopto quiz. Sorts. So you'd have the video with the the clues that they're being acted out. Then you could have a quiz question, somewhere within that video, and it'd be multiple choice, and then you'd have the students go about it that way. And then at the end, the student or the instructor could see the the answers, or well, the student would know if their answer was correct or not, right there, I think right there from the jump, but you could certainly do it that way. I don't, with some schools you may have Kaltura, Panopto, whichever sort of media. I mean, I know with some colleges and universities around here with Canvas, they do use Canvas Studio, so you may be able to do something there. We don't use Canvas Studio because we use Panopto instead. So you can certainly try to make it work that way.
Do you have any other questions? You can put them in the chat, or you can just unmute your mic if you want. Yeah, so there's a comment from Charmaine, loving the comic strip for the entrance flip too. Oh, and
Yeah,
Daphne sharing about it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, that's interesting. When I was first presented with that, I think it was either I think it was a Calvin and Hobbes comic, or it could have been Peanuts, or it could have been, I know it was either Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes, or Garfield, or the instructor may have used a combination of like three. And I was just kind of like, okay, how am I supposed to make this work? And so we weren't given very much time. We were maybe given 5 minutes. So I think the point of it was the instructor didn't want us to think too hard, but just think enough to get, convey the main idea of what we got out of that lecture, or got out of the concept that we were tasked with. And I know my classmates enjoyed it too. We would talk about it. What did you say for this? And what did your comic strip look like, or whatever. So yeah, it was a little daunting at first, but once we got used to it, then we just sort of we didn't think about it so much about oh, this is Calvin and Hobbes, or this is Garfield, where we just went about filling in the bubbles.
Yeah, and then Daphne says that Edpuzzle would be free resources for 20 videos for interactive video options.
Edpuzzle, yeah. Yeah, some of the articles I usually get from Twitter, and Twitter's a treasure trove for active learning ideas and just kind of interacting with different course designers in the United States, and I've made heavy use of it. And you also get like tips and tricks about Canvas usually, or communicating with each other. Oh, is there a Canvas outage? Yes, that kind of thing. So yeah, I found Twitter to be a valuable source too for articles, collaborating with other course designers and folks like that.
Yeah, and talking about comic strips, I recognize the one you used on your slides. That's Condorito.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know everything, Anna.
No, I just remember that because I grew up with it.
Yeah.
I think one time in my when I was teaching Spanish, I used Mafalda.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one too.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's great. Any more questions or comments from anyone?
Who do you recommend following on Twitter? Like, do you have any people that?
Oh, let me get out I follow, kind of name drop. I follow Kevin Gannon. I think his handle is the Tattooed Professor, the Tattooed Prof. So Kevin Gannon, Hildy Pardo, the Canvas Casters. Hang on, let me get my Twitter out. Let's see. Oh, I follow a lot of people on my campus who aren't course designers, but I follow a librarian. There's only a couple of instructors that I know that use Twitter pretty extensively. See who else? I follow some Dr. Kelly Hogan and VG Sathi from University of North Carolina. a bunch of authors as well. Let me type in one. Can't remember her last name. Oh, Jessamine Newhouse. She wrote Geeky Pedagogy.
Oh yeah.
And there's one more I'll mention too that I follow. Oh, John Becker. I felt he and I converse at least once a week. I think he's in Virginia. So those are a few that I follow. You know, I comment here and there, but John and I and Kevin Gannon, we speak like we back and forth maybe once or twice a week. Sometimes it's about education. Sometimes it's about sports. Sometimes it's about food.
Yeah.
I think it's just really, it's all about making connections and just kind of getting active learning tips, tricks, strategies wherever you can get them.
Yeah.
If you can't go to a conference, well, Twitter's pretty much just
Twitter's
gigantic conference
Yeah.
sometimes. So yeah.